"Do you remember me, human?" The alien woman claimed to recognize me. Elias Ward never believed that his life would matter to anyone beyond Earth. He was not a soldier. He was not a hero. He was not even important. He was a linguistics advisor, one of many humans chosen to help translate, explain, and soften the sharp edges of humanity during its first years among the stars. That was all. So when the alien woman looked directly at him across a hall filled with powerful beings, Elias felt the strange and uncomfortable sense that something had gone terribly wrong. The reception hall of the Interstellar Coalition was massive, built to make smaller species feel humble. The ceiling curved high above like the inside of a glass planet, glowing with soft artificial starlight. Tall beings of metal and light drifted past creatures made of skin, scales, mist, and crystal. Voices layered over each other in dozens of languages, most translated instantly through small devices worn at the neck. Humans were still new here, still watched, still measured. Elias stood near the edge of the hall, holding a glass of nutrient drink he had not tasted yet. His posture was careful, his expression polite. He had learned quickly that humans were seen as emotional, and emotional species were often treated like children. He was used to being ignored. That was why the silence felt so heavy when it happened. Across the hall, an alien woman stopped walking. She was tall, taller than most humans, but not towering. Her form was close to human in shape, though her skin shimmered faintly like polished stone underwater. Her eyes were dark, almost black, with thin lines of light moving slowly within them, like distant galaxies trapped behind glass. Her clothing marked her as important. Old species, respected species. She turned her head, and she looked directly at Elias Ward. The conversations around her did not stop, but something shifted. A few nearby delegates noticed her pause and followed her gaze. Their eyes landed on Elias, and several of them frowned in confusion. Elias swallowed. He looked behind him first. No one else stood there. Slowly, uncertainly, he looked back at her. She did not blink. She walked toward him. Each step was calm and controlled, but Elias felt the growing weight of attention like gravity pressing against his chest. The hall did not go quiet, but the space around them seemed to narrow, like the universe itself was leaning in to listen. Elias straightened his jacket and prepared his polite diplomatic smile. She stopped an arm's length away. Up close, she was even stranger, beautiful in a way that did not feel comforting. Her face held no obvious emotion, yet her eyes searched him with sharp focus. Then she spoke. Her voice was smooth and quiet, translated instantly in Elias' ear. "Do you remember me, human?" The word struck him harder than any insult ever could. Elias blinked. I'm sorry," he said. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in something closer to fear. "I asked," she said carefully, "do you remember me?" Elias felt heat rise in his face. Several nearby beings had turned fully toward them now. This was not how introductions happened. "I don't believe we've met," Elias said honestly. "I would remember." The alien woman studied him for a long moment. Then something unexpected happened. Her shoulders lowered. A slow breath escaped her, almost a sigh. "That," she said softly, "is unfortunate and also merciful." Elias had no idea how to respond to that. Before he could speak again, a tall, insect-like delegate hurried forward, clicking sharply in irritation. "Esteemed Salith," the being said, its translation buzzing slightly. "This is not appropriate. The human delegation," Salith raised one slender hand. The insect-like being stopped immediately. Every human in the room noticed that. Salith did not take her eyes off Elias. "You are certain?" she asked him. "No memory, no recognition." Elias shook his head slowly. "No," he said, "I'm certain." Her gaze softened, but the tension did not leave her face. "Good," she said. "Then the past remains asleep." She turned away without another word and walked back into the crowd, just like that. The conversations around the hall slowly resumed their normal rhythm, but Elias remained frozen in place, his heart pounding. Someone touched his arm. "Elias," a familiar voice whispered urgently. It was Mara Chen, the lead human diplomat. Her smile was polite, but her eyes were sharp with concern. "What did you say to her?" she asked. "Nothing," Elias said. "She asked me if I remembered her. I told her I didn't." Mara stared at him. "That was Salith of the Kethari," she said quietly. "Her species helped design half the coalition's laws. They don't speak to individuals, they speak to governments." Elias felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "Why would she talk to me?" Mara's jaw tightened. "That," she said, "is what scares me." Later that night, Elias sat alone in his assigned quarters, staring at the city beyond the transparent wall. The coalition station floated above a pale blue gas giant. Rings of light marked transport lanes, and distant ships moved like slow stars against the endless dark. Elias replayed the moment again and again. "Do you remember me, human?" He was certain of one thing: he had never seen her before. He had grown up in a small coastal city on Earth. His childhood was ordinary. His education was ordinary. His life was quiet. There were no missing years, no strange dreams, no hidden memories waiting to awaken. So why had she looked at him like that? A soft chime broke his thoughts. "Elias Ward," a calm synthetic voice said. "You have been requested for a closed session. Immediate attendance required." His stomach dropped. "By who?" Elias asked. There was a brief pause. "By unanimous request of the Coalition Ethics Circle." Elias let out a slow breath. That was not good. The chamber was smaller than the reception hall, but far more intimidating. There were no decorations. No audience, only a circular table and 12 seats, each occupied by a representative of a major species, and one empty chair, for him. Salith sat directly across from the empty seat. When Elias entered, every eye turned toward him. He forced himself to walk forward and sit. The chair adjusted to his shape automatically. Salith spoke first. "Elias Ward of Earth," she said, "you are listed as biologically unremarkable, socially average, psychologically stable." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Elias cleared his throat. "I thank you." That earned him a faint ripple of amusement from one or two beings. Salith did not smile. "Your records show no off-world travel prior to this assignment," she continued. "No exposure to classified programs, no anomalies." "Yes," Elias said, "that's correct." She leaned forward slightly. "Then explain," she said, "why your genetic signature matches a human who should not exist." The room went silent. Elias felt his pulse in his ears. "I don't understand," he said carefully. "That," Salith replied, "is precisely the problem." She activated a projection above the table. Images appeared: ancient star maps, unfamiliar worlds, records written in symbols Elias could not read. "Thousands of your years ago," Salith said, "my people encountered early humanity. You were young, fragile, violent, short-lived." A human delegate stiffened but said nothing. "We studied you," Salith continued. "We tested outcomes. We predicted extinction within 8 centuries. The projection shifted. "Yet here you are." Elias stared at the images. "You tried to stop us?" he asked quietly. Salith's eyes met his. "No," she said, "we tried to forget you." The words chilled him. "We removed influences, adjusted probabilities, ensured your kind would fade quietly." She paused. "You did not." The projection zoomed in on a single record. "One human," Salith said, "interfered, a variable, a mistake." The image resolved into a genetic pattern. It matched Elias. "Impossible," Elias whispered. Salith studied him carefully. "Do you still believe that?" she asked. Elias swallowed. "I don't remember you," he said again. "I don't remember any of this." Salith closed her eyes. "That," she said softly, "is why humanity is dangerous." The room stirred. "Dangerous?" Elias asked. "Yes," she replied. "You adapt without knowing why. You survive without remembering how." She opened her eyes and looked at him, not with hatred, but with something like respect. "You forget," she said, "and still you continue." Elias leaned back, overwhelmed. "What do you want from me?" he asked. Salith stood. "For now," she said, "nothing." She turned to the others. "The question has been answered," she said. "The human does not remember." She looked back at Elias one last time. "Let us hope," she said, "that he never does." Elias Ward did not sleep that night. He lay on his bed, staring at the soft glow of the station lights beyond the transparent wall. The gas giant below turned slowly, its clouds moving like silent thoughts. Every time Elias closed his eyes, he saw the same image again and again. A tall alien woman. Dark eyes filled with light, a question that should never have been asked. "Do you remember me, human?" He didn't. He was sure of that. And yet, something about the way she had looked at him made his chest feel tight, as if a memory had brushed against him and then disappeared. A quiet chime echoed through his quarters. Elias groaned softly and sat up. "Yes," he said. "The Human Diplomatic Office requests your presence," the station voice said. "Immediate," Elias sighed. "Of course they do." The human office was smaller than most coalition spaces. Humans preferred walls, corners, and doors that closed. It made them feel safe. Mara Chen stood near the central table, arms crossed. 2 other human officials sat nearby, their faces serious. "Sit," Mara said. Elia sat. She leaned forward. "What happened in that chamber?" she asked. Elias hesitated, then told them everything. The ancient records, the genetic match, the words dangerous and forget. When he finished, the room was silent. "That's impossible," one official muttered. "Genetic matching across thousands of years." Mara rubbed her temples. "Nothing about first contact has been simple," she said. She looked at Elias. "Did you feel anything, memories, images?" "No," Elias said, "just confusion." Mara studied him carefully. "That's almost worse," she said quietly. Before Elias could ask why, the lights dimmed. A symbol appeared in the air. Coalition priority signal. Mara stiffened. "They're calling another session," she said. "And Elias, they asked for you again." The chamber felt colder this time. Salith was not seated when Elias entered. She stood near the far wall, her back turned. Several coalition members were already present, whispering softly. When the doors closed, Salith turned. Her gaze found Elias instantly. "Sit," she said. Elias did. Salith did not waste time. "Your people believe identity is bound to memory," she said. "Is that correct?" Elias nodded slowly. "Yes, mostly." She tilted her head. "That belief is not universal." She activated another projection. "This is a probability chain," she said. "Every decision creates branches. Most species follow predictable paths." The image showed neat, orderly lines. Then she changed it. The human probability chains were chaotic. They twisted, crossed, broke apart, then rejoined in strange ways. "Humanity," Salith said, "does not move forward in straight lines. You fall, you forget why you stood, then you stand again anyway." Elias felt something stir in his chest. She focused the projection on a single point. "One human," she said, "long ago." The image showed a small figure standing before a massive structure, alien ancient. "This human should have died," Salith continued. "By every measure, environment, disease, conflict, probability." "But they didn't," Elias said quietly. "No," she agreed. "They adapted." The projection changed again. "This human altered an event, a small one, but it saved my people from collapse." Elias looked up sharply. "Saved?" he asked. Salith nodded. "We were rigid," she said. "Perfect planners. We calculated survival down to the smallest detail." Her voice lowered. "And we failed." The projection showed her species, civilization fracturing, social collapse, resource imbalance, cultural stagnation. "The human did not fix us," Salith said. "They asked a question we could not calculate." "What question?" Elias asked. Salith hesitated. "Why do you believe survival must be efficient?" The chamber was silent. "That question," she said, "changed everything." Elias swallowed. "And you think that human was me?" Salith met his eyes. "No," she said. "I know you are not the same individual." She stepped closer. "But your genetic pattern appears again and again across your history." Images flashed, humans in different eras, different cultures, different names. "All of them ordinary," Salith said. "All of them present when extinction was near." Elias' hands trembled slightly. "You're saying humans like me keep showing up?" "Yes," she replied. "Not heroes, not leaders, witnesses." The word echoed in Elias' mind. "Witnesses to what?" he asked. "To choice," Salith said. "To refusal." She straightened. "My people once believed memory was strength," she said. "Perfect recall, perfect history." Her eyes softened. "We were wrong." She looked at Elias again. "You forget," she said, "and that makes you free." After the session, Elias wandered the station alone. He watched alien families pass him, heard languages he still could not understand, saw beings who lived for centuries, who remembered every mistake perfectly. And he thought about humanity, about stories passed down wrong, about history argued over, about mistakes repeated and sometimes corrected. He stopped near a viewport and pressed his hand against the glass. "We forget," he thought, "and still we survive." A strange warmth filled his chest. Later in his quarters, Elias dreamed. It was not a memory, it was a feeling. Standing before something vast, not fear, not courage, choice. A voice, not Salith's, asked softly, "Why must survival be efficient?" Elias woke with tears in his eyes. He didn't remember, but he understood. The next morning, Salith sent a single message to the coalition. "The variable persists," it read. "Humanity remains unpredictable." And still, they continue. Elias' ward began to notice the change after the third session. It was not written anywhere. No announcement was made. No alarm sounded. But the way the station looked at humanity had shifted. Before, humans were treated like children who had wandered into an adult room, watched with polite patience, corrected gently, ignored often. Now humans were watched differently, more carefully. Elias felt it in the pauses of conversation when he entered a room. In the way some alien delegates stopped speaking entirely, while others leaned closer, curious and uneasy. Humanity had not done anything new. That was the problem. Salith stood alone in a high observation chamber, gazing at the moving stars beyond the station's shield. Behind her, symbols floated in the air, data streams, probability graphs, long-term projections. Most of them were wrong. She closed her eyes slowly. Her species had once believed the universe could be understood completely. That with enough time and data, all futures could be predicted. Humans had broken that belief, not with power, not with technology, but with refusal. A soft tone sounded behind her. "Esteemed Salith," a voice said. "The Council requests clarification." She turned. A being of light and layered geometry hovered near the entrance. Ancient, analytical, one of the Coalition's oldest members. "You are concerned about humanity," it said, not a question. "I am concerned about assumptions," Salith replied. The being pulsed faintly. "Explain." Salith gestured and the data shifted. "Humanity was never meant to survive," she said. "Not by design, not by chance." The projection showed a familiar pattern, human probability lines collapsing repeatedly. "They should have ended themselves," the being said. "Statistically." "Yes," Salith agreed, "again and again." She changed the display. Each time the line collapsed, it bent, recovered, adapted. "They survive through failure," she said. "They learn from loss without preserving it perfectly," the being tilted. "That is inefficient." Salith's eyes darkened. "So was our extinction," she said quietly. Elias sat in another closed chamber, this one smaller, more personal. Mara Chen sat across from him, hands folded. "They want more access," she said. "To you, to human history, to our psychology." Elias frowned. "That doesn't sound terrible," he said. Mara gave a tight smile. "It does when curiosity turns into fear." She leaned forward. "They are starting to ask a dangerous question." Elias waited. "What happens," Mara continued, "if humans stop forgetting?" The words settled heavily. Elias looked down at his hands. "We don't work that way," he said. "We argue about our past, we rewrite it, we misunderstand it." "Exactly," Mara said. "They don't understand that," she hesitated. "They think forgetting is a flaw." Elias remembered Salith's words. "You forget and that makes you free." "What if it's not a flaw?" Elias said softly. Mara studied him. "That," she said, "is what scares them." The next coalition session was larger. More species attended, some who had never bothered to speak to humans before. Elias stood beside Mara, feeling small. Salith addressed the room. "Humanity is not a threat because of strength," she said, "nor ambition," a murmur rippled. "They are a threat because they do not remain what they were." Images filled the chamber, humanity's past, early wars. Environmental collapse, division, then recovery, cooperation, then new mistakes, then recovery again. "They fail," Salith said, "and instead of ending, they change." A metallic voice spoke from the far side. "Change is predictable," Salith turned. "Not this kind," she said. She gestured toward Elias. "This human does not remember saving my people," she said. "Yet his kind continues to ask the same questions." She paused. "Why must survival be efficient?" Elias felt his heart race. Salith looked directly at him. "You do not remember," she said, "but you still choose." She turned back to the council. "That is why previous attempts to guide humanity failed." Mara stiffened. "Guide?" she asked sharply. Salith nodded. "Subtle influence, adjustments, probability corrections." The chamber grew tense. "You tried to shape us," Mara said. "Yes," Salith replied, "and every time humanity resisted without knowing it was resisting." "How?" Elias asked. Salith looked at him gently. "You told stories," she said. "You argued, you disagreed, you forgot instructions and made new meanings." She exhaled slowly. "We could not control what would not remember us." After the session, Elias walked alone again. He felt heavier now, not important, but representative. He passed a group of alien scholars whispering softly. "They don't stabilize." But it was clearer. Elias stood in a place with no walls and no sky, just endless light. Someone stood beside him, not Salith, a human, ordinary, tired, calm. "You won't remember this," the human said. Elias turned. "Then why tell me?" he asked. The human smiled faintly. "Because forgetting doesn't erase choice," they said. "It protects it." Elias felt something warm in his chest. "What choice?" he asked. The human looked outward. "To continue," they said, "even when the universe says you shouldn't." Elias woke with a steady breath, no fear. No confusion, just resolve. Salith submitted her next report in silence. Humanity is not advancing toward a fixed future, she wrote. They are becoming something new every time they survive. And something close to hope. The decision day arrived without warning. No alarms, no announcements, no dramatic signs. That was how the coalition worked. The most important choices were made quietly so no one could react too quickly. Elia's ward felt it before he was told. The station felt different. The lights were slightly dimmer, corridors were emptier. Conversations stopped when humans passed by, not out of disrespect, but caution. Humanity was no longer being studied. Humanity was being evaluated. Salith stood before the sealed chamber doors, her hands folded behind her back. Her species did not sweat, but if they did, she would have. Inside the chamber, the coalition would decide one thing: whether humanity would be protected, or contained, or restricted. No one said the final word aloud, but everyone knew what it meant. Extinction did not require violence, only prevention. Elias sat with the human delegation in a waiting chamber nearby. Mara Chen looked calm, but Elias could see the tension in her shoulders. "Whatever happens," she said quietly, "remember this." He looked at her. "We didn't ask to be special," she continued. "We didn't ask to survive." She met his eyes. "But we did." Elias nodded slowly. "That has always been enough for us," he said. Mara smiled faintly. Inside the chamber, Salith addressed the council one last time. "We are not voting on humanity's strength," she said, "or intelligence or threat potential." A being of metal and sound responded. "Then what are we voting on?" Salith paused. "On uncertainty," she said. She activated the final projection. It did not show technology. It did not show fleets. It showed stories, human stories, paintings on cave walls, songs passed down without authors, myths rewritten across centuries, history argued over, corrected, misunderstood. "These records are inaccurate," one delegate said. "Yes," Salith replied, "that is the point." She changed the projection again. Each time humanity faced collapse, war, disaster, isolation, something appeared, not memory, meaning. "They do not preserve the past," she said. "They reinterpret it." A voice spoke from the shadows. "That makes them unstable." Salith turned. "That makes them resilient." Silence followed. Elias was called in. He walked into the chamber alone. No weapons, no symbols of authority, just a human in simple clothing. The room felt enormous. "You may speak," the council said. Elias took a breath. "I was told I represent a pattern," he said, "not a person." No one interrupted. "I don't remember saving anyone," he continued. "I don't remember ancient choices. I don't remember you." He looked at Salith. "And yet," he said, "I believe you." A murmur spread. "Humans forget," Elias said, "but forgetting doesn't mean losing." He looked around the chamber. "It means making space." The council waited. "When humans forget pain," he said, "we can forgive." "But that's not how we work," Elias said calmly. "We don't evolve by remembering perfectly." He placed a hand on his chest. "We evolve by choosing again." Salith felt something break gently inside her. The council deliberated. Time passed strangely inside the station. Minutes felt like hours, hours like seconds. Human delegates waited. Alien observers waited. Elias sat alone afterwards, staring at nothing. For the first time, he felt the weight of humanity not as pride, but responsibility. The decision came quietly. Humanity would not be restricted. Humanity would not be altered. Humanity would be observed as equals, no protection, no containment, respect. The chamber doors opened. Mara exhaled shakily. Salith approached Elias slowly. "You spoke well," she said. Elias smiled faintly. "I didn't plan it," he said. She nodded. "That is also very human." She hesitated. "There is something you should know," she added. "Yes," Elias asked. "The first human who changed my people," she said softly, "did not remember us either." Elias looked at her. "They only asked one thing before they died." "What?" Elias asked. Salith smiled, a small, real smile. "Did it help?" Elias felt warmth fill his chest. "And did it?" he asked. Salith looked toward the stars. "Yes," she said. "It helped." That night, Elias dreamed one last time. No voices, no visions, just the quiet understanding that humanity did not survive because it remembered. Humanity survived because it refused to stop becoming.